Now we're coming to one of the more technical aspects of the developing a lesson and filling in the manuscript. And so for filling in the manuscript, you should have a template for the lesson. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like as we go through. So first thing we think about when we're filling in our lesson format is we're going to write down the lesson number and the new letter or letters that are being taught in that lesson here at the top of the page. Then we're going to fill in the picture words and the breakdown for those. Then we would fill in the picture word boxes, which are boxes 1 and 2. Then we're going to fill in the comparison box, the identification box, and the contrast and analogy box. And then at the bottom of the page, we're also going to include 3 of the new words that are in that lesson. That's on the left-hand side of the page. And then on the right-hand side of the lesson, we have our new story word boxes, which are other new words in the story that are not the picture words. We have our mixed word part boxes. We will have our story underneath those, our scripture reference for the lesson, and then the other new words that are in the lesson here on the bottom of this page. And so those are the pieces that will go into each lesson for lessons 1 to 32 as you are filling out the manuscript. Now, the person who's doing the filling out of the manuscript is the facilitator of the LEI consultant or someone who's been trained in the LEI method or somebody that they've designated to do that. So the first thing is you have that lesson format in front of you. I always fill in this part first, the lesson number and the new letters. Then I fill in the picture words. So write the word beside each picture, beside the square, and I write the meaning of the word. In my case, it would be English because that's the language that I know. If the main area you're in, you're doing French or Portuguese or whatever, you could write it in those languages or whatever the main language is. And in lesson 1, then we're going to break down our picture words. And remember that in lesson 1, everything is new. So we're going to break down, we can break down at the beginning of the word, of one word, and the end of the word and another word. And that's going to help set up our teaching pattern for later. So in this case, we've broken down part of a syllable because this is a one-syllable word, the K, and then K, and then right below it, the A, and A. And that sets up, if you remember our teaching pattern, this is the picture word Kate. Kate begins with K. This is also K. This is also K. K ends with A. This is A. What is this? What is this? What is this word? So here in Teta, we've broken down the second syllable. You want to line these up as you're writing because you want to make sure you're as neat as possible. Repeat that syllable here and then break it down again to the vowel or to another part of the word and then repeat that here as well. Now, after lesson 1, when you're teaching a new letter, then you want to highlight that letter as you go through your break down your picture words. And in this case, our new letter is the cluster MB. So Mbuzi. So you can see here we've broken out Mbuzi because the MB syllable is in the middle. So we break out 2 syllables down here. We repeat those here, and then we break out the MBU and repeat that here. Same for mbata, because we break down these two syllables, repeat that here, and then break out ba and repeat that here. So that's how our word breakdown goes. So remembering after lesson 1, you're going to break out the syllable that includes the new letter or letters or clusters. And then as I'm filling out the manuscript, so I've written my letters and stuff at the top, I've written in my picture words, and then I usually write my story out in the lesson, so it's all there for me to get to easily. And you want, for lessons 1 to 12, we're going to write each sentence on a separate line. Then as we get into lessons 13 to 15, we'll do block paragraphing, meaning that there's no indentation here, but you'll run sentences from one line to the next, like in a regular paragraph. And then lessons 16 to 46, you're going to do the regular indentation, or whatever's normal for that language and how they write their paragraphs. Then I fill in the new words at the bottom of the page. And that way we know what all the new words are, and then we'll get to the other words here in a moment. So when we fill in the words at the bottom of the page, we're going to put the 2 picture words always on the left-hand side of the page, but different lessons, you're going to put them in different orders. You're not always going to put them in slots 1 and 2, going 1, 2. Here, you can see bala bala is the first word on the bottom of the page, even though it's the second picture word. But sometimes you might want to put like bana, awa, bala bala, that kind of thing, mix it up. And then you put one of the other new words on this page. And then the 3 other new words, if it's a 6-word lesson, on this side. But on lessons 1 to 3, because we only have 4 new words, you can put the other new word here along with the 2 picture words again. All right. Once I've got those pieces in place, then I go back and I start to fill in the other parts. And so then I come down to our picture word boxes, which we call analysis synthesis boxes. And we call them analysis boxes because we're breaking down, we're showing the pieces of the word, we're analyzing the word. So kame, ka, a. And so then the synthesis part is we're putting it back together, we're building it back up. And so then they take the thing that they've just broken down into pieces and then they put it all back together. And you want to use the 2 picture words in these boxes. So here, kame and kakoko. And you want to use the same breakdown in the early lessons anyway that you've used up here. So that just makes it simpler for the new reader. So you're going to break down the word on the left and build it back up on the right. And you want to be very careful here that you line things up. So what I usually do is I write in the full word both on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Then I come down this way, and then over here I kind of go backwards so that I'm lining everything up correctly. So then we go to the comparison box, and in this box we are going to be comparing what different vowels look like with the same consonant. So we're comparing the consonant with the different vowels. So for lesson 1, if possible, if we have 2 vowels in the lesson, we want to use both of those vowels here and then the same consonant. If, for instance, in lesson 1, then we only teach 1 vowel, then we would use the same vowel here and different consonants, but that's only for lesson 1. So the top row, after lesson 1, always we're going to use 2 vowels or different vowels, and then you're going to use the same, pick 1 consonant here. to make the second row of the syllable. Now, if you're teaching, if the new letter in the lesson is a consonant, you want to make sure you use that consonant here. If the new letter you teaching in the lesson is a vowel, you want to make sure that vowel appears in this row here. Now, as we go through on the comparison box, as we get different lessons are going to have different, we're going to be adding a little bit more information. So like from lessons 8 to 11 in the comparison box, now we're going to have 3 vowels and 3 syllables. When we get to lessons 16 to 46, we're going to use 4 vowels and 4 syllables. It's once again always using the same letter or letter combination on this second row here. Then we're going to get to the identification box, and this is a pretty simple box. Basically, you're just going to take your syllables that you have in box 3 and you're just going to repeat them in box 4. There's just the things that they've just learned to read here. They're just going to repeat again here. And then we get to our box 5, which is a contrast and analogy box. And then lessons 1 to 3, it's very simple again. We're just going to basically repeat the row that's in this bottom row of box 3 here in box 5. So for all of our lessons, you're going to repeat this first row of box 5 is always going to be the same row as box 3. Now, as we go on in our lessons, you can see here in lessons 4 to 7, we're going to add a second row with a different consonant that we've already taught. So a consonant from a previous lesson, most likely. Then, in lessons 8 to 11, remember in lesson 8, we've added our third vowel here. So we repeat this. We repeat it here in box 4. We repeat it in the first row of box 5. And then we also then add our second row with another consonant. Lessons 12 to 13, we're still going to have 3 columns, but now we're going to add a third row to our syllables. So we will have 3 different consonants from letters that we have already taught. In lesson 14, we're just going to add on, still have 3 columns, but now we're going to have a 4th row. So we'll have a 4th row here. And then in lessons 16 onwards, we're going to have 4 by 4. We'll have 4 columns and 4 rows in that. And that's as many as we ever put in box 5. Then the next thing we're going to do is fill in our new story word boxes. So we're going to take our other new words that are in the lesson and we're going to write them in the boxes here. And once again, these are our analysis synthesis boxes, like in our picture word boxes. And for lessons 1 to 3, this is going to be box 6 and 7. And we're going to break down and build up like we did for box 1. So we'll just put those in. And you want to highlight syllables that have the new letter in them if it's there in the word. Now, you may have a word that has only old letters, and that's fine. You can highlight maybe a syllable you haven't taught yet or haven't highlighted yet. One of the things is I keep a syllable chart of syllables that I've highlighted and ones that I'm using to watch and see if I'm missing anything. Now, lessons 4 to 46, you're going to have new story word boxes, that 6, 7, 8, and 9. So you'll be filling in four of those boxes. Now, our mixed word part boxes, we would call them syllable boxes, but we found in many languages they don't have a word for syllable, so we call them word part boxes. And in lessons 1 to 7, we're going to have 2 syllables per box. And we're only going to use syllables that are found in the story. So we're in box 5, we're patterning syllables whether or not they're in the story or in the lesson. But in boxes 8 and 9, we're only using syllables that are found in that story to help the new reader. And you want to highlight syllables that have the new letter in them. Once again, it's another form of repetition for the new reader with a new element. Now, lessons 8 to 11, there's going to be 3 boxes, but you will still only have 2 syllables per box. Then we get to lessons 12 to 46. We're going to have 3 boxes again, but we will have 3 syllables per box. But that's all we do with our syllable work. We don't want to get too much going on for the new reader, otherwise it gets too difficult. Then the other thing we're going to have in our scripture, in our lesson, is our scripture reference. And in lessons 1 to 11, there's no, remember we introduced Jesus in lesson 12. So in lessons 1 to 11, there's no Bible story to link a scripture reference to. So you can ask your team what they'd like to put, or here's some suggestions you might use for the first lessons. You might maybe want to pick one verse or a couple of verses that kind of bring in the gospel message, or kind of talk to your team and see what they would like to do. Now, in your manual, there's a nice overview chart because, let's face it, this is a lot to remember. I live with this overview chart when I'm doing boxes. And so you have so this chart just helps you to know what to look for. So lessons 1 to 3, you've got your 2 picture words, you have your 2 new word boxes. Just reminding you, you're only going to go at the most three levels breakdown. You're going to have 2 rows here, your identification, and then 1 row here. You have your 2 story word boxes and your mixed syllable boxes and your story. Lessons 4 to 7, you'll notice this is the same as above. And then what's different is we've added a second row here in box 5. Plus we've added 2 other new story word boxes for a total of 6 new words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lessons, okay, this is 4 to 7 again, and then 8 to 11. You can look for the differences here. This is all the same. Now we've added a 3rd column here. Still have our 2 rows here. All of this is the same, and now we've added a 3rd mixed word part box. So that you can take a look at those as that goes through all the different changes there. And so now we're going to try one together, and that's going to be your next assignment. We'll have a video that we'll work on together.